evening, everyone. My name is Lys, and I am the owner of Lys Arts, the gallery and art space that you are sitting in today. Lys Arts opened last October. So we're in our first year being in the space, and we're very excited. I'm very excited and honored to have MarY artist YounG doing a solo exhibition here in the springtime and early days of summer with a lot of her really beautiful indigo pieces that you can see around the room. Lys Arts is a gallery space, but it is more than that, as some folks in the room might already be aware. But we do have art studios for artists upstairs, so there are spaces available for rent, just creative workspaces for folks to use, because there just aren't enough of those on the south side. That's available to artists of many levels. And I also work out of the space. I'm also a visual artist myself and a clinical social worker. So I've got I got a lot of hats that I'm wearing. And so I'm really excited that you are all here to be in the space, enjoy the space that we have, and also, kind of be in the ambiance that is MarY YounG's work. We have a really close relationship. We have been friends since 2007. I believe. I met MarY in my first job out of college at the Collegiate Scholars Program at the University of Chicago. We struck up a really wonderful friendship, had a great work dynamic, and have just stayed in touch and stayed close ever since. So I've seen MarY grow as an artist in her, retirement from arts administration work, as she's seen me grow to a social worker through the wild days of my 20s and beyond. And was, always such a really wonderful mentor and advisor and a source of guidance throughout the whole time. So I, feel lucky and honored that, I do know her and that she's been in my life. So she's kind of like an adopted grandmother for me. So, I'm really happy to provide this space for her and honor her in this way. So we do have this artist talk today. This current exhibition will be up until July 15th. And during this artist talk, because I wanted us to do something a little more dynamic and interactive, or do something a little different with this. So we're actually going to do a demonstration of MarY prepping and dyeing a piece of indigo during the talk today. So she'll talk about her work, her process, her career. And I'll be kind of helping to do some portions of the process while she's doing the talk, so ignore me. I'll just be fiddling with things on the side. But I will just say a bit about MarY's artistic practice, and then I will let her take it away. So MarY YounG is a visual artist and textile designer. Her studio practice investigates the translation of visual language through signs and symbols of Eastern and Western cultures expressive of everyday life experiences. Their relationship to a symbolic language is commonly viewed as part of a greater global society. You'll see that connection throughout the work in this exhibition in particular. Through the use of charts and technology, MarY experiments with a variety of different fabrics embellished with Adinkra stamps, while focusing on the ancient traditional use of indigo vat dye techniques. This magical plant-based dye combined with chemistry creates amazing outcomes through the creative process. There's some of you in this room who've taken her indigo class before and have learned some of the techniques that you'll see in this room. And one of the beautiful things about indigo, it's always a surprise. Like, it's never the same piece twice. And you'll see as we do a piece today, that process live and in color. Extensive research on symbols used in Asian and African cultures throughout the world revealed similarities which serve as her foundation to create a contemporary symbolic language. Her work explores the interconnections through language and imagery of the world crossing borders and ancient cultures to stimulate today's urban language through textile designs. I present MarY Artist YounG.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Yes, Amira is right. I wanted to do something a little bit different with an artist talk and not be someone sitting here talking at you and not to you, but also give you an opportunity to see how I create my work. My work, as you mentioned, is, I guess I can go back and say, I've always been interested to create a symbolic language. Oftentimes, and it's really directed toward our youth. And the reason why I mention our youth is because oftentimes they will create some symbols, usually it's with gang activity or something of that nature, and think that they are the sole bearer of that creativity, and not realizing that it has been created before, and usually centuries before. So I went on a serious mission, working with different cultures, to see if there were any similarities. And I did discover a lot of similarities. But before I go into all of this, I would like to point to something that has been a symbolic entity for me. I noticed, if you notice as you walked in, there was this huge piece of fabric in the window. Okay, now this piece of fabric happens to be my drop cloth. And I have had this drop cloth since art school, which documents my entire journey. And that's my entire artistic journey. So you will find a lot of symbols on there, and a lot of people say, oh, you just painted those on. No, I was using that as a test before I actually created the project or the textile itself. So as I began to talk about a lot, oh, and by the way, that's not for sale. So everything else is for sale, but that is not for sale. Okay. So I want to focus on a particular piece while I am doing this demonstration, which is the two pieces in the back. And if you notice, it sort of stands out, and those are the pieces that have the black symbolic imagery. So that was created back in 2016 when the violence first erupted in Chicago. And I wanted to create something that would let people know that this is something that we have to fix. Can't nobody fix that but us. So the broken lines resemble our broken communities. And you can see that they're not together. Everything is separated, falling apart. And what I did with the symbolic imagery is the two Adinkra stamps. It's a chicken's foot. In the Adinkra language, the chicken foot always resembles the parents. And so the parents, I felt with this, are responsible to help put the community back together again. Not looking outside for anybody else to fix it, as we normally do. We'll say, oh, you need to come and fix this. You need to come and stop this violence. So I felt that they are the ones who can pull it together. The silver symbol represents volunteerism. So if you could pull together the parents or the adults and the call to arms, which is the volunteerism, then you could put those black lines back together again. And if you don't put them together again, guess what? The ones you see at the bottom, those are handcuffs, and they're waiting for you. Any questions? Wow. Oh, okay. And the one that's next to it is called the court system, which is very chaotic. And if anybody has ever been to a court in Chicago or anywhere, it's usually very chaotic, and you really can't get anything done. And so when you see the symbol that looks like a round circle, but different colors, those are actually people, I guess we could call them here, jail guards. who are running around trying to, and there's really it's really a design, it's a hair design that they wear on top of their head in the Adinkras, Ghana, South Africa. I'm sorry, Ghana, West Africa. In Ghana.
I've seen it.
You've seen that? Okay. One of the things that I had hoped people would do would purchase this piece, but for some reason nobody ever wanted to buy it. And I think it was because of the symbolism that was used. Because you really have to think about it, because although this was created back in 2016, it's still happening. It's still going on. Nothing has been resolved. So with that, I'm just hoping and praying that eventually something will happen, that those lines will be connected again, and that we can actually rebuild our own communities. But until that, it's always going to be broken. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring to this particular piece is normally when I do my work and when I approach it, I don't have any type of design in mind at all. I just go straight to it. This is the only time that I have ever created and come to creating a design. But again, I wanted to make sure that, again, this gets back into that symbolic language, you know. So, any questions? Oh, you mean I'm giving out adequate information? Yes, Medea?
I do have a comment around they're both profound around the court system one though, because, I mean, when I came in, I saw flowers.
Okay.
A motif of like flowers in the garden or something.
Okay. And that's what perception is all about. You know, maybe we need flowers. And as a matter of fact, there is an artist who's planting flowers all over Chicago in these vacant lots. Yes, so it's starting, you know, it's starting, but I mean, look how big Chicago is. You know, it needs a lot of people to do that, a lot of people. And I know funding is an issue too, you know, so, but there's so many things you can do without having money. It's just about opening up and talking to each other.
Right.
You know, yes.
I just wanted to know why did you choose the colors that you used?
The colors? Interesting. Those are metallic paints. And I wanted something that would stand out. Usually when you think of metal or something of that, it's something that's going against the grain. You know, so you could say that the colors I chose were actually something that is going against the grain in that particular piece. You know, it could have been something that was very mild, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else in here that shows that. Yes, in that piece that's next to it. You can see where I did tone down the colors a lot in that piece. But that one I wanted to be very, very bold.
What about you?
Oh, my apron? Yes. I guess you can say I now have a Adinkra apron. And as I began to continue to work with a lot of symbolisms, I always test all of my paints, anything I create, I always test on myself first. Because I want to make sure that it's going to be correct and to be authentic. Not necessarily, this really doesn't say that much about me itself, but it does in a way. When I did this apron, I had a residency at the Oxbow School of Arts and Residencies in Saugatuck, Michigan. And I worked with a master artist on Indigo, and that is where I learned how to do batik. So when I started doing batik, the only thing I created was this piece on the side. Because actually, he did the batik in one day. So we were taught in one day how to use a batik. And if you want to see an example of what I did, it was on this one banner, and this is the only one that's left in that series. So when you're working with batik, it's very, very different. I didn't realize that once you put that hot wax on the fabric, you cannot take it up. So if you make a mistake, you have made a mistake and it's actually going to stay there. So you have to be careful in terms of what is the image that you want to create with the batik, and also continue to draw your image. I'm not going to go too much on that because I am going to be offering a master workshop where I will cover batik, wearable art, indigo, and there's another area too that I'm thinking about going into, and that's this piece that's in the corner. I'm looking to do home decor. Great models in MarY. And those are 2 curtains that I actually purchased from IKEA. And they are the biggest pieces that I have in this show, I think, the longest.
Yeah.
They're like 100 inches long. So if you can imagine trying to create a design on a 100-inch piece of fabric, and just remember, everything that you see in here was once white.
Really?
Everything was white. When you look at the clothing that you wear, it didn't come red, it didn't come yellow, it was white and somebody dyed it that color. So when you think about how do you create different imagery and how do you create different types of clothing, it's all done with a creative person in mind. And what we have with Indigo today is when you look at your blue jeans, done with Indigo. So what I'm going to do today is to give you a brief idea of what process we go through, or that I've gone through, to create all of this work. Now, all of the work was created with basic household items. I use clothespins, I use marbles, I use rocks, and this is my latest one, corkscrews. It don't tell you how much champagne I drink, but I drink a lot of champagne, okay?
Every glass of wine you have contributes to.
So with this, yeah, a lot of people come and see my work, and the first thing they say, oh, that's tie-dye. Is that what any of you all thought when you saw my work? You did? Why did you think it was tie-dye?
Because the way it looked like the one that's behind you at the top.
Oh, the one at the top?
Yeah. And this one over there.
And that one over there? Okay, guess what? That one was put inside a mesh bag. It was put inside a mesh bag and put inside the indigo vat dye. And it turns out this beautiful design. But this is the one that you have no control over. You have no control over it at all. And on the opposite side, it's a whole different type of design. Anybody else? You all are very quiet. Oh my goodness.
I see she's starting off with a damp cloth. Do you have to dampen your fabric?
I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes.
Okay.
But before we dampened the fabric, we actually had to pre-wash it.
Yeah. Oh.
And you have to pre-wash it so that you can get all of the sizing out. Because when you get any type of new fabric, it has a sizing in it. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes it look like it's crisp and it's great and, oh, I want to buy that, No, they do that so you will buy it, okay? So we wash it, usually at the laundromat.
So you're starting anew?
We're starting anew. Yes, there would be like, yes. Okay. It would be like a brand new piece of fabric. So what I'm going to do now, and it all has to be wet, before we put it in the dye. So I'm going to start out using,
One more question.
Okay.
How long do you have to dampen it? Is it just a few minutes, or is it best if you wash it or you just dampen it?
No, you wash it before.
Okay.
Before I put it in the water to get wet,
Okay.
it was washed.
It was washed.
It was washed.
Then you gotta dampen it.
And then I have to dampen it so that the indigo dye can easily enter the fabric.
Right, okay.
And when you think of tie-dye, you usually think of twist and dye. You know, because usually tie-dye, if you notice with tie-dyes, they always have the same design but different colors.
Right, it's like a twist.
It's like a twist. And what I'm using in all of my work, most of my work, is a new technique that I discovered called shibori. And it's a Japanese technique. And they use the same process, twist, twist and dye. But they use either, sometimes they'll use twine, you know, to hold it, depends on what country they're in. And, but what you want to do is to bind it in an area where you do not want the dye to enter. So when you see my work and you see the areas where you're really creating a negative and a positive effect, and that's what you see with this. So that's where the rubber band was. And the rubber band did not allow the dye to come in. It stayed in the middle. And this was done, all of these were done with marbles. Can you imagine how many marbles I used for this particular piece? Now, the design itself is beautiful when it comes out, but it's hell. Taking those marbles out, okay? This particular piece was done with a rock and rubber bands. So it depends on how many times, and so when you see this, you see there were a lot of rubber bands used in that piece.
So actually you're putting the surface in there, but you're also binding.
You're also binding it, yes.
Binding.
And that's what shibori does, twist and bind.
Oh, okay.
Twist and bind. So I'm going to start by doing a few techniques, and I can talk while that, and you can ask me questions. Oh, one thing I left out. Can anybody look at the work and tell me or identify which one I used clothespins with?
That one right here?
No.
This one?
Yes, you're right.
And the back behind it?
See the little dots?
Right here?
The dots, right?
The dots?
Right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, they were done with clothespins.
So the term shibori means that you can use any material to make your block off.
Yes and no again.
Okay.
They all should be 100% cotton or linen.
I'm talking about materials like you're using cork,
Right,
you're using the rubber band,
right,
and you can say twine.
right.
So all of those,
Can be used.
and it's called shibori.
It's called shibori. Good job, Miss Frazier.
Oh.
I'm sorry, but this is my best friend. She knows me. Just putting me on the spot. What can I say? No, but this is good.
Okay.
This is good information.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So with this being a clothespin, how did you gather it and like, you know what I'm saying?
I know.
Like, so did you just fold it a certain way and then put it with the clothespin?
Yes. So what I did, in order to get that effect, I would have to do some type of fold. Well, I did like an accordion fold
Okay.
in the middle of the fabric, and I took the clothespin. So when you do an accordion, you're going to fold it like an accordion file. Then you're going to clip your clothespins at the top. And bottom. And this is as far as I'm going to go on this one, because I'm not going to do the whole piece in clothespins, but I just want you to get a glimpse or to get a view of how this is actually created. So the other thing that I'm going to do is,
If I could, if you did want to get a closer look at what she's doing on the table, feel free to get
yeah, feel free to get up. Or I can just hold it up.
that she's talking about them too.
So,
Don't feel locked into your chairs.
right. So the next thing, now if I want to keep this consistent, then I may, okay, this got little dots. Let's try some marbles. So, you would take a marble and do this. So when you do the marble, you would put it underneath the fabric, twist, that's where the twist comes in, and then you take a rubber band to make sure that it is as tight as it can be to not let the dye come in. So you can imagine when, now this would be considered a test swatch for me before I do my large piece of fabric, because I want to see how it's going to turn out.
Okay.
So,
And every fabric adheres to the dye differently. You know, you could do the same pattern, same technique on 5 different types of fabric and textiles, and it'll show up different in each one.
now to show you something that's real interesting, the young lady said she thought that top piece was tie-dye. That was actually created with a wood block, with 2 pieces of wood.
You mean
Both,
this one here?
this one at the
Yeah.
top and also the one over there. And you see how the designs are different? It's always going to turn out different. A lot of times I usually get, I used to get really upset that I couldn't control the design I wanted to have. So I just let Indigo do his thing. So when you think about indigo, indigo is actually a plant. And it's a real plant. And it's alive. So when we do the vat, and Cindy will show you when she opens up that vat, you can actually see something on the top that we call a flower. But the flower is actually the bacteria that's the alive part of the indigo. Yeah. Now the thing that you don't want to happen is once you immerse your fabric into the dye vat, do not let any air hit it at all. Because once you let the air hit it, you pretty much ruin the whole vat. Yes. So you have to.
When you saying air, okay,
I mean this air, the air with any air.
okay, but once you put it in the vat, you don't close the top, do you?
No, you're
So
gonna.
if you raise up your cloth,
Right.
that's getting the air.
That's getting the air.
Gotcha.
So once you get, and it's hard to see it once this lid is on, but so you have to manipulate your fabric underneath the water. So, and when you manipulate it, you are trying to make sure that the dye enters all of the different parts of the fabric. And what you have happening then is that's when chemistry comes in. Because once you get ready to, I guess you can say, oxidize your fabric, and oxidize meaning oxygen. Soon as it hits the air, it's going to start turning blue. Soon as it hits the air. So what we try to do is to make sure that you keep all your fabric underneath the water, and it only takes 30 seconds. So can you imagine, you would think that it would take longer than that? So when I did this one piece over here, I left it in much longer because I wanted a deeper color. And so when I got the color that I desired, then I just took it out and let it oxidize with the water. Yes. This piece? Oh, I mentioned that before you came. So, that's okay. Yes. That particular piece was done with a mesh bag. I put the entire piece of fabric inside a mesh bag, you know, that you get your oranges in, your lemons, your potatoes. But of course you would need a big mesh bag for a piece of fabric like that, so it would be a bag of potatoes. And then you let it stay, and it's going to take a while for that because it holds a lot of water. It holds a lot of water. So you would have to keep it immersed in the dye vat for a pretty long time. The longest I've ever had anything in a dye vat has been 5 minutes. And you think 5 minutes is nothing, but it's good because it creates a color that you could never imagine would come out of it. And the other thing that I wanted to say about this, a lot of the bigger fabrics that you see in this exhibit, they're all tablecloths. They're all vintage linen tablecloths that a friend of mine gifted me. So I decided to use them to create some art. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that you can do, I mean, think of it as a piece of fabric. You don't necessarily have to hang it on the wall, because a lot of people say, I don't have any wall space to put something this big. Then cut it up and make it into a dress. You know, because that's all it is fabric. And, or you can put it on a sofa, or you can make some pillows. There's so many things you can do with it, but you have to think about thinking outside the box, thinking outside your comfort zone.
Okay, Miss Mary.
She beat you to it.
Oh.
So what keeps you doing Indigo after all these years?
Because I wanted to, oh, these people keep walking, I'm sorry. They just using the tramp as the ramp as a walking thing. Anyway, what keeps me going with the Indigo is creating beautiful work. Creating beautiful work for people. And also, I think this is a technique that needs to be shared. You know, people need to know how colors are made. They need to know, I'm sorry. Oh no.
You know how the talk is going.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted people to experience something different, to experience what I have. You know, it's, I feel that I've been given a gift, and when you're given a gift, you share your gifts, you know, and you keep going, because I feel that the Creator's not through with me yet. I mean, I've been around the planet many times on my solar return, so I said, okay, I guess I'm not through yet. Okay. So one of the things about the piece here that I want to talk about is I did give it a name. It is done on a tablecloth, and the pieces in the middle are actual napkins. So I entitled that piece, Dinner for Six at the Freedom House. And when you look at the symbols in each of those pieces, then, and I'm not going to go through all the symbols because we do have an Indigo chart over here on the wall, and you can feel free to come over there and look it up, but these are people I feel that are making waves in the world, you know. And you don't need a lot of people to make decisions for the world. And that's why I decided to say, I said, all we need is 6 people, you know, and come up with a solution. So let me finish with this piece.
Oh, I had a question.
Oh, she does have a question.
And one here too.
Okay, when we're going through the process of shibori,
Yes.
can we actually see the blue in the water as it's changing, or do we go by numbers and math and say, okay, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes?
No, you're not going to see it changing until you expose it to the air.
Okay, so I'm just saying if we just kind of look at, we just gonna see something blue.
No, you're going to see green water.
Green water, okay.
It's going to be green. And that's where it's beginning to turn, you know, in a sense, before it oxidizes. So with the green water, you know, you just want to make sure that you're still not exposing it to the air.
So when we see in green, it's actually turning blue inside the water.
No, it's not going to turn blue until it hits the air.
Okay, I got you.
Blue is the last color.
That's the last color.
It'll go through 2 other colors
Okay.
before it turns blue.
Okay,
First
what's the
will be-
other color other than green?
When it first comes out, it'll be a lime green color.
Or lime?
And
Same as that water.
when it oxidizes, then we're going
It
into
starts going
metallic
to-
purple.
Oh,
Yes.
that's real chemistry, right? Okay.
Right.
And then, once it's processed a bit more, it'll turn into the indigo color that we know and see on the wall. So even every
Gotcha.
piece in this room has gone through several transformations
Yes.
before it reaches this final product that we're looking at now.
Okay.
So do you hang it and wait for the changes, or?
You will see it.
You'll see
Yes,
with the
hanging
dimmers.
is part of it. That's why we have this strange contraption up here.
So I am going to try a corkscrew. And that is going, I'm trying to think, do I have any pieces in here with a corkscrew? No,
Absolutely do.
I do. Yeah.
Yes. There was a question up here, ma'am.
Oh,
Is indigo the only color you have experienced, had experience with?
no. Good question. Actually, indigo, I've only been doing this for about 7 years. Prior to that, I was doing all colors. And the colors I used were called Prussian dyes. And that creates a lot of mordants, which is like natural dyes. And when it's so interesting, when I retired, I was so geeked up. I was ready to do my art. And I said, ooh, this is going to be great. And so I went to art supply store, which is Blick. But unfortunately, they didn't have a chemical that I was supposed to use for my color dyes. So then I was trying to decide what to do. So I saw an indigo kit. And I said, I think I'll try this indigo kit. I've never done this before. So I got the indigo kit, didn't know what the heck I was doing. I followed the directions. It said, put it in some, everything was separated. So those, when you use the indigo kit, those are usually used in schools to work with students. And everything is pre-measured, and it tells you what to put in with what. So I said, okay, I will make that my backup thing. So indigo was not my first preference. But when I used it, I said, oh my goodness, this is really great. And all I did was get 2 buckets and put a piece of wood on the top for my lid. Because I didn't know like I said again, I didn't know what I was doing. But it turned out great. It really, really turned out great. And to give you an example, let me give you an example of what I did with that bucket. You see the gold piece over there? That's the last of that series that was created with that indigo kit. And that is similar to tie-dye. That's similar to a tie-dye effect. And I didn't know anything about shibori. So I'm just making it up as I go along. Yes.
So it's coming up for me as you speak, like you've been doing this for 7 years with particularly indigo.
Right.
Because I'm just curious what you've received in the process as it relates to like our experiences with indigo historically, coming out of like South Carolina and us having to work indigo.
Yes.
Like what's been the impact of even, like I hear you say, well, I didn't know what I was doing. And I get that part, but like, have you made the connection around being like spirit-led?
Yes, yes I have. Yes, I have. And that's what she mentioned in terms of my research through a lot of charts and different symbolic places around the world. One of the areas that I focused on first was what was called the Silk Road, and I don't know it, yes. The Silk Road in Asia was an area where a lot of natural dyes were being used and created. And with the Silk Road, the indigo was actually used as a way of bartering. They would use it to trade because you could actually walk from one country to another. So in order to buy something else, you know, like if they wanted to buy some silk, then they say, okay, let me buy some silk and I'll give you some indigo. You know, so that's how it went. And so that's how it ended in other countries. So when you're thinking about the Silk Road, it went through Asia, it went through Africa. And by the time it got to America, we started calling it tie-dye and not shibori. So that's how it came about with me. I really enjoyed working with indigo because of the magic. And I always call it as being a magic, the magic world of indigo. Indigo is also medicinal. You can actually, some cultures actually eat indigo, the natural indigo. There's a tribe in Africa called the Tuaregs, and these are people who usually do all their travels in the desert. And when you see them, usually people call them the blue people, and that's the indigo that has actually gone into their skin. So when I said, oh my goodness, I don't know if I want to try that or not. So I said, that's going to be another thing. So as I'm doing this corkscrew, I am actually using the rubber bands in two places. Because when you see the cork, you got the top and you got the bottom. So I want to create an image where some of the dye would not go in that part, and then it would not go in this part either. Okay. Anything else I want to add to this?
And
Oh,
as you were saying,
a rock. We'll add a rock.
You were using the Adinkra symbols.
Yes.
The original Adinkra cloths were indigo. They were not.
White.
They were not in colors like the kente cloth.
Right.
The original kentes were just done in indigo, blue and white. The indigo. And when they started being introduced to cultures like China coming in and other people, they started giving them colored pieces of strips to deal with that kente. But they only did it in blue and white at first. Those are the more, if you ever get a chance or you see it in a thrift store, you get that piece. Yeah.
She's traveled extensively
So this is relevant.
to Africa.
Last week, and they were doing carpets, but it was similar like what you're saying, and it was Turkey to Silk Road.
Right.
When watching these women weave, they were talking about the process of coloring
Yes, yes.
thread.
Yeah, and when you look at this wasn't blue, it was white. It was dyed. It was dyed. There is a place in Africa called Mali. And Mali, one person he's a master dyer in indigo, and I just love this man because he starts out with this. He would dye this first, and then he will weave it into the fabric itself. Because you got to remember, all of this is woven. This is all woven. You know, it has, and the reason why it looks flat and tight like this because it was a tight weave. So when you have clothing that has a loose weave, which could be this.
Yeah.
Okay, what I'm wearing is gauze. So gauze itself has a loose weave. And the reason why I wore this gauze is because I wanted to let people know that you can also do wearable art with indigo. And yes, I'll turn around so you can see it. And I just love it. You know, I just really, really love it. And This piece I've done, I think this one is about over 10 years old. And the one thing that you don't, I've washed it, you know. The thing that you don't want to happen is to have indigo be exposed to the light, because it will fade. The sunlight will fade it.
So will it affect them, those that in here from the light coming from outside?
Well, when the gallery is closed, I actually have curtains
Right.
covering the windows, so they're not exposed to natural light unless we're actually open. So minimal sun damage. Someone have a question in the back?
Yes.
One of our studio artists upstairs.
Yes.
She's very talented
Yes, she is.
Thank you.
and humble.
That's another story. But I wanted to ask, since you brought up home decor, I was wondering if there was anything else that you wanted to work on, like any other materials, like maybe cans or shoes, like just any other thing that you wanted to like get
You want to
into.
mention to her about the performance? Red Clay Dance Company.
Oh, yes, actually, we collaborated with Red Clay Dance Company to dye some wearable art for their dancers for their most recent performances. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's another performance tomorrow, I believe. It was fabulous. We went yesterday. But we dyed sneakers for them, various scarves, and they used one of MarY's pretty classic textiles. It was a multicolor indigo and a red textile design that she did in their costume, and it turned out really well.
Yes.
You know, MarY likes working on different types of projects, and you know, is open to commissions for different collaborations. You know, if anyone does have any ideas of what they would like to have done in indigo, perhaps.
And gym shoes?
I mentioned.
Oh, okay. They're the shoes, yeah. So, I mean, there's so many open opportunities. The area that, I think somebody asked me, where was I going from here? I'm looking to take my work to the next level. And that's one of the reasons why I stopped teaching, so that I could actually do my own work. And what I'm doing now is I'm using mosaic, glass mosaic, and putting that glass mosaic into fabric. I said, oh, I've never done this before. And when I talked to my instructor, he said, I don't think it's ever done before. And I said, oh, good, we can learn together. So,
Your next exhibition.
yes, that's going to be in my next exhibition. It's really an interesting, I'm always looking for something to challenge me, you know. So I feel that I have taken indigo as far as I can go with it. You know, I wanted to do something else, something different, something that's going to make me want to just, you know, jump up and down about, you know. And with the indigo, because a lot of people said, oh, people get tired of the blue. Don't you ever get tired of the blue and looking at the blue? No, I don't get tired of it, because everybody has not seen indigo. Now, there is a difference between commercial indigo and the indigo we use, which is one of a kind. And when I say commercial, I'm talking about a lot of times you would go into Target and you would see indigo pillows. Those are commercial. If you go into a store, any stores, you know, any big store, they were commercially produced. And a lot of African fabric, you think maybe the original fabric, but it's not. It was commercially produced by machinery. And this one is kind of ready to go in the dye. One of the things that I did not talk about was that big piece over there in the window. Now that piece is called Princess Newt. I always wondered why every time I took a photo, my arms would be up in the air like this. I don't know why I do that, but I just do it, you know. And so I was looking in, and I'm always looking to be authentic. So I didn't just get this out of the wild blue. So I looked into my dictionary, The Gods and Symbols of Ancient Egypt. And guess what? I found my person that had her arms up in the air. I said, that's me. I said, I do that. So all of that is done with batik wax because I wanted to make sure that it stayed, to me, forever. It took me about maybe 2 weeks to a month to finish that piece. And that's because it has many different layers in it. It's got batik wax in it, it's got paint in it, it's got Adinkra stamps. And when you add all of these different embellishments, you have to wait until each layer dries. And so it was a very long, drawn-out process. I did not cut that fabric to look like that. I actually got it like that. I was working at the Hyde Park Art Center at that time, and they were about to throw it away, and I said, no, I'll take it. And so I took it in. That's what I created. Some of the symbolism on there is a creation of mine. Sometimes I create my own symbols, and just messing around and see if I could come up with something different. And I did on that one pillow you see in the back. So the pillow is actually, those are my own symbols. And you find that you will begin to get creative, after a while as you go on your journey. You say, well, let me try this and see what this is like, So, we got this one piece in.
I'm going to go ahead and dye this piece. So, if you'd like to kind of see it a little more up close, feel free to come.
I think you all should. I think you should see it up close because you are going to be amazed.
So this is the dye bath that is normally used to create all of the indigo fabrics that are in here. So no matter how big the piece is, it had to fit into this. Yes.
Is that a powder first? Or
Is this what?
is it like a powder first, or this is like?
We use pre-reduced indigo crystals and a mixture of 2 chemicals, thoria dioxide and soda ash in this particular bath mixture.
Is that the smell? Like it has a particular
Oh, very.
I walked up, I smelled it.
Yeah.
This is one of the better smelling chemical mixtures. So yeah, I've smelled some doozies.
Okay.
Oh, and we do wear masks when we're working with that. She just don't happen to have her mask on. Yeah, she's going to do a quick dip.
Close right up again.
Okay.
So I'll do a quick dip. MarY, how long did you want it in?
I want to say the 30 seconds maybe. So they'll see what a 30-second. See, whenever we get the indigo dye, the instructions always say 30 seconds. But I always think 30 seconds is too short. I said, what's wrong with a minute? So somebody want to count 30 seconds?
I am.
Okay.
Now, what are you doing to it?
It needs to be manipulated under the level of the vat, because if you keep it like pinched on a particular point, that fingerprint is going to be in the design. Okay. So you got to keep it moving under there so everything will get the color that you want. Wherever you put the rubber bands, you want those to be the places that don't get the dye. Indigo does have a mind of its own.
It truly does.
30 seconds.
It has a mind of its own.
So you'll see once it comes out,
So
it's this
there's the
green
green.
color.
There's the green.
So we're gonna hang this up here to begin its oxidation.
This is so
process.
cool. I love it.
Oh, wow.
Now you see the magic of indigo.
So when you put it in the indigo, you have to keep it moving.
Yes, once it's under the level of the water of the vat, you gotta keep it moving. Right
And
now,
how long can you keep that vatted water? Will it last? I mean, do you have to toss it out, or can you keep it?
No, you can keep it.
this vat we've been using for at least a month.
Oh, okay.
And I'm just covering it now until MarY is
Right.
done prepping the next piece.
And sometimes I've actually kept that for a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to
You still got, how many years ago has that been?
Does it lose water as you go? Does it get surfier or thicker?
It can get a little
It
thicker.
can.
The water does run down over time, so you will lose like volume as you keep dyeing things in there.
You don't just add more water to it?
No, you would just need to create a whole new vat. Because as you're using up the vat, you're using up the content of the dye in the vat as well.
So what I'm doing now is doing a technique for repeat patterns. And what you see for repeat patterns is in that piece and in that piece over there. So what I did was do an accordion fold, which is going back and forth. And then I'm going to do the same here. I'm still going to do the accordion fold.
And you'll notice this piece is already changing color pretty drastically.
Quick.
So we're gonna let that oxidize a bit.
Inspired.
I'm so glad, yes.
The master class is July 8th and 9th.
Yes, it is.
Sunday, 10 to 4.
Right now.
It'll be right here.
Write it in your
We
calendar.
got a backyard. We'll be outside in the backyard, and we will learn all these techniques, including batik, which is the wax resist, and MarY will be teaching the whole thing. Now, remind you, she just said she retired from teaching to focus on her practice, so this is a rare opportunity to be talking.
Yes, it
to her
is.
specifically.
Now, when you say master class, what
You do not need to be the master.
Alright.
You don't have to be the master. No, no.
Very entry level.
Okay.
It is a beginner. It's okay.
And, right, you don't have to have experience. Yes.
Where's the registration information?
Saturday and Sunday, you can register at lysarts.org. You'll go to the shop part of the page, and you can register for the workshop there.
Gratitude.
Gratitude right back.
So you don't rinse it out.
Yeah, rinsing out will happen later, but as it's oxidizing, you don't want to squeeze any of the dye out. You want it to go through its chemical transformation. Because the oxygen that's hitting it right now is what's changing the color to the indigo and helping it adhere to the fabric.
When we look at some of these examples, when it is fully dry, which since we won't see tonight, what color will it?
You'll see this opened up tonight. We don't have to wait for it to fully dry.
No.
We just have to wait for it to oxidize.
Gotcha.
It's a different process.
And what color will it most resemble here? Like that's lighter, darker? Like
Maybe.
completely dry.
We don't know.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's part of
We don't, that's the, we don't know.
I mean, I have used this specific fabric for one of the Red Clay Dance Theater projects, so I do know that this cotton fabric does pull the dye really well. Like it gave me a really rich color with not a lot of time in the vat.
Gotcha.
So I imagine this will be a nice rich indigo color that we end up with. But that's
So
just
remember
my
when I
guess.
was folding this? So I'm putting it in between two wood blocks. And it was folded with the accordion twice. Once going lengthways and then going sideways. And what you're going to create is a repeat pattern. I know you like to use the color, but. Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, you know what? Can you pass me a pair of scissors?
Yes, as soon as I find it. 1 second.
Yeah, you can see it turn colors here. It's like, now if we were outside, it would be real quick. Real quick. Because the only air we have now is what's coming through the windows and from the fans. So I want to make this as tight as I can. Now, as I'm doing this, guess what else I'm creating?
Is it like a stamp?
No.
This is the rubber band's going to create a different design.
I'm actually creating a design on the sides.
Okay.
She had the answer. She said it.
Oh, okay. And this is what you can think about doing as you're creating a piece. You say, oh, do I want to do something else with this? And of course, the larger pieces I have on the wall were not done with this size wood block. It was done with a real thick, big one. We had to use large wood blocks.
Well, how long did it take?
Same as the other one. So now I'm just going to start wrapping. Hold on. Now what's going to happen with this is going to be interesting. Because it's a wood block, it has a tendency to float on the top of the bath. So you're going to have to really hold it down. Yes, yes. You have to keep it submerged. Usually I put like a little handle on it so that you can put it all the way at the bottom and keep it there. So it's like a little dipping tube. And with this, I'm going to get all kinds of designs. Okay. So this is something you can hold it in. Okay. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting it. Because I'm telling you, once you put this in, it's hard to keep it under the water because it keeps floating to the top.
And sometimes we use pretty large wood blocks.
Right, right.
You get the same kind of size bath for those large pieces?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now that's interesting that you say that.
It is. It all has to.
They all had to go in that little vat. And that all of these went into that little vat. So what I really hope to happen, we're trying to create a partnership with the people that have, what are they, the Growers Collective? Urban Growers Collective. They have they have farms all over the south side of Chicago. And they just recently was awarded this huge land over in South Chicago. And a few of us did attend an event, planning event that they had because they wanted to see if there were any artists that were interested in putting some of their work on the land. So the first thing I came up with, I said, oh, wow, we should do an Indigo Village. And the reason why I said that is because a lot of times when you go to places in Africa or in the Carolinas, they have their vats in the ground. But Chicago's earth is so hard, it would be and we get winter. See, they don't get winter, it's warm there all the time. So they could actually keep theirs in the ground. And then they just put a lid on it and do their work. And it's usually made out of terracotta. Okay, now let's see what happens.
So how long does that take? You said
30 seconds.
I'm just saying, you're waiting for your blue go through its process, right?
Mm-hmm. You're waiting for it to turn blue.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that happening a little bit with this one.
Yeah, it's
See on the side, it's turning blue already.
Yeah.
Definitely using gloves when you're
Definitely. Well, you don't have to, but
Well, but that mixture, that's not a natural fat mixture.
No, it's not.
So
No, it's not.
That's, I would recommend cloves.
But
Yes.
then once you can touch what's on the clothespin right now without gloves, no issue, you won't get any dye on your hand?
You will get dye on your hand. You will get dye on your hand. But it washes off.
Okay.
Yeah.
MarY,
Or wears off.
if you thought maybe if you did a ceramic piece that could go into the ground,
Right.
could you do it that way
Yeah.
here?
That's what I'm hoping. A clay pot.
Okay.
We could collaborate.
A clay pot.
Mm-hmm.
And you said collaborate with the ceramics department?
I could probably maybe do a pot that you could use for the dye. Could that be possible?
We can explore this.
We explore. You know, nothing is impossible to us. You know, you would just go ahead and try it and see if it works.
Right.
What are you adding?
So every vat that is made with indigo is a living vat. So there is like bacteria in there, it's alive.
Ooh.
And so
It's an organism.
yes, an organism. So in order to kind of wake up the vat, as we stir in the mixture, like what's called a flower will come up in the middle, but it is a collection of
That's
bubbles,
bags.
really.
Yes, the bubbles.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Bubbles
the
are
flower.
They're flower.
It's called the
It's
flower.
called a flower, but it's a collection of bubbles that will collect in the middle of the vat, and that has to be scooped out before you use the vat and returned to the vat when you're done using it for the day.
Oh, wow.
And that's part of what keeps the vat going and
Right.
alive and
Sustaining
usable
it.
time after time.
It's the bacteria. And that's why we say it's alive, and it really is alive.
Very organic.
So that's why.
Very organic, yes.
Taking the demonstration to make sure it wouldn't like get knocked over by accident or anything.
Can it die?
Hmm?
Can it die?
Can it die? I mean, yeah, I've seen some vats just, you know, not produce much anymore. You know, the vat is spent, you know, like the liquid is different, like even as you're stirring it, the consistency
Eventually
of it
it
feels different.
oxidizes.
Right.
It goes into the air, evaporates.
Exactly.
And I've seen it go bad if people are using, say for instance, polyester. They'll put polyester in a dye vat, and that would just ruin. I mean, it won't ruin it exactly, but the dye is not going to come through the polyester because that's plastic.
Right.
It's a different organism.
You know, that's why we say you have to use natural fabrics. And one of the things that I'm always experimenting with, you see that this piece is done with some jute, you know, and I said, oh, let me see how that works, you know, so I dyed it and said, okay, then I'll create a piece with it. And so in creating that piece, that's also batik wax. So I will be, you know, in the master workshop, I will be covering batik wax, as we mentioned, wearable art, which is like my top. And we're asking all people who sign up for this workshop, if you have personal items that you would like to bring in and dye, we're willing to let that happen, but make sure that they are natural, you know, natural fabrics. But we're providing all materials and all supplies.
Okay.
Only thing you have to bring is a pair of gloves, red, you know, rubber gloves.
Those are like those rubber ones we get in the store.
You want to make sure,
Dish
like what
gloves.
she had,
Yes,
dish
they are.
gloves, dish,
These are dish
Okay, like
gloves.
this.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you have the rubber barrier so it doesn't get to your skin, and these gloves tend to have enough length for when you're
Right.
into the vat. So I will rinse the fabric out now and bring it back to MarY to open up.
Okay,
And continue the talk.
yes,
I love that chair.
I love it too.
Yeah.
It's a senior citizen chair. But I like using it because it's helping me now. I'm actually wearing a knee brace. And in wearing this knee brace, I have to be able to get up out of the chair using arms. Like I can't, like sitting, no. No folding chairs. And no office chairs like that one, nope. It's gotta have arms.
Question for you, MarY. You said all natural fabrics. Does that include linen? Because they're
Yes,
different.
that's linen. Yeah, that's natural.
Yeah, okay.
Silk, you know, of course canvas, but you gotta be careful with canvas because you need to wash that. You need to wash it too.
Right.
Oh, yeah. And it's real.
And it has a lot of sizing in it,
Right.
but you can actually wash it.
You should show us. I love this.
So, excuse me. I was telling Medea, I feel like I saw that when I took this picture at my grandmother's burial in February.
Oh, get out of here.
I loved it. I can't stop staring at it, but it's the sun.
Thank you, wow.
And it's like the same spot and everything.
Oh, wow. Now, this is really interesting that you say that. One of my former students, she told me, she said, I don't know why, but every time you do a piece of work, it seems like a face is always there.
Yeah.
And I call it my spirit, or a spirit that's coming from somewhere. If you look at, especially when looking at this top piece, don't they look like little people?
They do.
You know? They look like little people. This looks like a full person because you can actually see the face.
It looks like the swamp, like the centuries hiding
Yeah.
the riverbank.
Oh, it's my turn, right? Thank you.
I'll rinse the second one and you've done that one.
Okay, the fun begins. You all want to come up and see
The opening.
the opening, the reveal?
I'm so inspired.
Okay.
Looking forward to seeing you in the master class.
Okay.
That's the beginning.
So we usually, I started out by using scissors, but then I found out that it is easier using a seam ripper because then you can dig beneath the rubber band. Come on now. Oh, somebody broke it off. Okay, no wonder. And that's another thing, when you should bring your own seams, because I've let people use mine, but they don't care if they break it or whatever, and they won't tell me they broke the tip off, so. I said, oh, well, no wonder. So you can see it coming. See where it's, and usually I don't use gloves. I just use my hands for this.
Yeah.
Because it's hard working with gloves. Unless they really fit in you. Okay, here we go. Okay.
Wow.
Remember, this is the corkscrew. And that's the bottom part of the corkscrew. And remember, this was only in for 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you go longer, it's going to be a deeper blue.
Right.
You know, this is driving me crazy. I'm sorry. Gotta use my hands. It'll wear off. But it's hard to manipulate with this. There we go.
Wow.
Wow.
No. Isn't that something? And just think, this was created with a corkscrew. Okay, let's see what happened with these clothespins.
That's so beautiful.
Oh, okay.
Clothespins. Okay, now these are the worst, the marbles. Oh gosh. I could never do that with the gloves on. That's what she
How I
said.
earned my keep as her studio assistant. Yes, this part right here.
She did. And especially on that piece. She said, why you put so many marbles in there?
I mean, you get excited.
See?
How many hours went into the piece?
This is from the marble.
The marble.
Wow.
So what you're actually doing is creating a negative and positive space, basically. Oh,
No, I wanted to ask how many hours went into that piece behind you?
oh my goodness.
Enough to make you want to throw it out. But it comes out so beautiful, so it's like,
I think it had to be like 3, it was for the entire class. No, it wasn't the class.
well, there's the prep time beforehand. The
Like the prep time, yes.
Yeah, all of that.
Taking them out.
When you dye fabric and you take the resist off of it, that all has to happen in the same day. So usually we'll get started, like a piece like this will get started like early in the morning. It
Right.
takes a while to oxidize because it's just so much more fabric. It's holding a lot more water to it. It takes a lot longer to oxidize. And then there's rinsing it out. You have to rinse all of that until the water is about a clear, like very, very light blue color.
Okay.
Which can take quite some time. And then you take out the rubber bands and marbles.
You said the rubber bands have to be taken off the same day.
Everything.
This has to all be the same day.
What happens if you don't do it the same day?
Huh?
What happens if you don't take them off the same day?
They're dry. You don't want it to dry. Because see, once you take all of this off, then you got to rinse it again. You got another step to go. You got to rinse it until the water runs clear. So,
What will happen if you don't, you do your rinsing, but you leave the rubber bands and the marbles and everything in there?
I have not tried that, but I don't think I would want to try it. And the reason why, because I would think that it would dry out, if you leave it in for, if anything, I would leave it inside the vat. I just wouldn't leave it outside because it's not going, I don't know if it's going to continue to oxidize. It might continue to oxidize. And if you, no, I don't think I've ever tried that. Leaving
I think a few pieces that I've done where I didn't remove the resist soon enough or complete the rinsing process soon enough, there is some discoloration that happened on those pieces. Like instead of indigo, it was more of a gray color that came out.
It's fading.
Yeah, and when you open the fabric, like if you were able to look close enough, as she's opening it, like you're gonna still see some of the green color in there.
It's like moving
So there's still some,
So here you go
going through its process.
with the entire piece. I had no idea of any kind of design. I just started putting stuff everywhere. And this is what happened.
The one on top looks like it's caught fire a little bit. It's like balance on the top.
It sure does.
Yes, no, that's interesting.
Okay, so we got this.
We can put that back on the clips here. And I'm gonna go rinse the second one. Well, any last questions or comments before MarY opens the last piece? for tonight?
Oh, that's right. She's got to rinse it. And that's another thing, too. Then you got to rinse it. And then you got, you know, before you take it out, you got to rinse it until the water runs clear again. Before you remove, you know, like whatever you use for the resist. And you definitely have to make sure you're in a space where there's access to water. And that's where I have had a lot of problems. I have been in studios where no water. I mean, they have water, but
Nothing that you can get to.
right away. It's like where you have to walk. I've been in a studio where the only water was a bathroom sink.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let me ask a question. What would be the safest place in order to do that, since it does give off like...
Right. A place, well,
So like this place...
this place is fine.
It's fine. So
An apartment, no.
if there were like 10 people here
Right.
taking a class, is that a safe?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Especially since there's window fans.
Okay.
Are we talking about a class in the space?
What would be the safest place?
Like a safe
It would be,
space.
we would be outside. There's a backyard space, so we would be outside
that many
for
people.
most of the class, yeah. Well, for any size class, I would prefer to do it outdoors.
Right.
Just because with all this setup, like it's kind of nice if you can just let things just drip into the grass, go back to nature a bit,
Oh, right.
you know, as opposed to this tarp situation. I mean, imagine the whole floor here with tarp, you know, so.
We have been there, done that.
Just kind of be in the sun and you know, oxidizing ourselves as well.
And also, you want to make sure there's good ventilation if you are in a room, you
Do
know.
you want to show the green color that's
Oh,
on there?
right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
See the green?
Okay.
So it's still oxidizing.
Okay, because I was gonna say it will turn.
Yes, it will.
Oh, okay.
Now remember I said you're trying to create a repeat pattern.
Right.
Wow. Oh, that's pretty.
Here goes your repeat pattern.
Hold it around.
And it'll still continue to oxidize,
Right.
transform from this stage. Like how it
Oh,
looks
okay.
now is not going to look like.
No, it's not.
So you would just hang that up?
Just hang it up and let it complete. Although sometimes I wanted it to stay green, you know, but
Because it's
Right.
actually turning.
it is.
Yeah.
It's turning now.
Like-
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Take a class.
I know. Well, you know, I've always wondered how people get those repeat patterns, you know, in blocks. And so now you have, all of these are one of a kind. One of a kind. And when she mentioned something to me about this bag, oh, goodness. A whole new pattern.
Wow.
A whole new design on the other side.
Right. Okay.
So when you're doing the mesh bag, you're going to end up with two different designs.
Right.
See?
That's how it's situated in the bag.
Right. Well, how it was situated in the bag, and let's see, do they have any? Sometimes you can see the imprint of the bag, but I don't see it on this piece. But I have created pieces where you could actually see the imprint of the bag on
I
it.
feel like it's in these areas like right here and like where it looks like teeth
Teeth.
at the bottom, but like,
Right.
like where it's split
Right.
out, I feel like it's a part of the bag.
Right.
So when you put it in the bag, you just stuff it in the bag?
Stuff it in the bag. And when you
Recyclable materials you use with
Huh.
the bag, or do you actually purchase a real mesh
Like
bag?
reused materials, so you can use produce bags, so it's just that mesh produce
Right.
bag.
Right.
You get your oranges in and other
Right.
fruits.
Okay.
That's the kind of bag we're talking about.
Cool.
If you
You
have a
didn't
shower.
use any shibori process.
No.
If you
Before you
undo
put
the
it on.
This
shower,
is-
that creates a
Just
mesh
crumble.
bag, too.
The bag is actually the shibori process.
I got you. And the crumbling. The crumble, you stuff in a piece of cloth.
Into a bag. I have no idea how it's going
Right.
to turn out.
Right.
None.
Got you.
Now I have a question going back to the block. So I know
Oh, here, see how it's turning blue?
I've never seen
Yeah.
the same pattern, you know what I'm saying? Everything is always different. So if you took the same method that you just did with the block, and I did the exact same thing, would it still come out different?
Yes.
Not a little different, yeah.
Same thing happened with that piece, with the curtain,
Right.
and then the piece up here. They don't look alike, but it was the same process. And that's when you really don't have a lot of control. I should say no control. Yeah.
That's what makes it real interesting.
It is very interesting.
It does what it want to do.
Yes, it does.
And an intention to do something one particular way, but it kind of take over and do what it want to do.
It does. It does. The indigo takes over. It really takes over. Yeah.
I should have wore my shirt.
So is that,
Yes, you should have.
Should have wore my shirt.
I should
is
have
it
worn
the
mine.
plastic bag, or does that matter, since you said that you can't use,
Any kind of produce bag.
that is so interesting.
Thank you. Any kind. I mean, I have no idea. Now, it's really interesting because the works I have on this wall were in my 2018 exhibit. But this is all I have left from that exhibit. I don't have any more indigo. This is the last of my indigo. The other area that I want to move into is home decor, you know, because people, they think they don't have room or height to put anything on the wall, and I just want to let them know that they could do other things with it. Can you imagine that made into a pillow? Yeah. And you know what is really interesting? A lot of times I look at fashions that are happening out of Paris and New York, and now the runways in Paris, they're using vintage tablecloths.
Wow.
They're using vintage tablecloths. I said, I need to go to Paris so I can see my tablecloths. But yeah, I mean, that just shows you where the creativity comes, you know.
That's what I like about that particular piece.
This one?
The pattern is already in there, already, know the history of it, but looking at it, it looked like it's giving off like rays from the different designs.
Which one? This one?
It looks like it's giving off,
Yeah. I mean, that's another surprise about the indigo process is that as it's drying, more of the design is revealed.
Right.
Because those aren't the things
Right,
we would
some
be
more
able to
stuff
see while it
going
was still
on.
wet
Yeah.
and initially processing. So it's just kind of this continual reveal and surprise in the indigo dyeing process.
Because when I did that large piece on a tablecloth, now that it has gotten a little older, I can actually see the design of the flowers of the tablecloth underneath, which creates another layer.
Right.
So tell your friends to come by and buy some art. My goal is not to leave here with anything. I'm serious. So wherever you see the blue dots, those have been sold.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
We thank you.
For coming and enjoying this artist talk, and thank you, MarY, for doing this beautiful demo.
Wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We all learned a lot and enjoy each other's company, and I'm glad that we feel. I mean, I feel comfortable in here. Like I'm glad we could feel comfortable in this space together. But if you wanted to learn more about the works in this exhibition, the catalog is right here.
Right.
Including all the titles of the pieces, which we didn't get a chance to go through each individual piece.
Right.
But every one of them is worthy of attention. And if you are interested in taking the master workshop, I can show you on our website where you can register. but it is on our webpage at www.lysarts.org. You would go to the shop section of the website and the workshop is listed there. And we'll be having that July 8th.
What's the deadline for registering?
I think we would need to have the registration a week before the class starts.
Right.
Just so we can make sure we have all the materials for
Right.
everybody, because all materials are provided. So that'll give us time to make sure we've got enough cotton for everybody, enough rubber bands.
Right.
All of that.
Marbles, corks, and I'm not going to drink any more champagne. So, so save your corks if you're drinking champagne.
So, Cindy, I'm under the radar. I do not own a computer, so
Okay.
I will just kind of come to you.
Yeah, we can figure that out ourselves. Be lovely to have you, Evelyn.
Yes, I would love to have you, Evelyn.
And space is limited for the workshop.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
There's space limitation.
Right.
Like
Just remember,
I don't
I'm
have
ready.
endless utility sinks, so if you are interested, do go ahead and RSVP.
I'm gonna
as soon
see
as
if my
possible.
sister want to do it.
Oh, yes.
Thank you
I
all
bet
for
she
the
would.
evening. Feel free to continue to look around, enjoy the food, enjoy some more wine. Feel free to, continue to talk with MarY if you'd like. But we're much appreciated.
Thank you. Oh, you know what I forgot to point out? That little quilt.
Oh.
Okay, so I've always wanted to know where I got my interest in textiles. And it was from my grandmother because she used to have quilting bees. And I decided that I wanted to learn how to quilt. So I went into the class bringing all my indigo and I said, oh, this is what she said, no, you're not going to do that. You have to learn how to make the traditional 18-inch square quilt. I'm telling you, I do not like to sew on a sewing machine. All of this was done on a sewing machine. And I said, oh my goodness. So after you put on each particular little square, then you got to go and iron it out. Then you got to go back and do another. I said, this is too much work. So I think what I'm going to do is they have what they call artist quilts. And with the artist quilts, that means you just sew. And that's what they did with the quilting bees. They weren't measuring any stuff out and doing all that. They just sew pieces together, and that's all I want to do is sew pieces together.